Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today we've got quite the topic to talk about. I want to give some of my perspective and thoughts on the current state of the Division 2. If you've been anywhere around the community this past week, then you were probably well aware of some of the stuff I'm going to address here, and you probably know that I'm like one of the last people to be making this kind of a video. Several creators have been giving their thoughts and whatnot on all of this for several days now, and that's all fine and dandy. I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but I felt it only right for me to give some of my own perspective. People have been asking. This stuff is important, so here we are. What I really want to do is just holistically talk about all of the issues we're seeing right now, how that fits into the larger context of year 4, and really just my thoughts of the entire situation. You know, I've had people tell me opinions from each end of the spectrum, that the devs deserve more slack than they're currently being given. I've had people tell me that they deserve to be called out more and that I'm being irresponsible for not actively doing so. So people are fired up. You know, everybody's got their own opinion, and I don't plan or have any kind of ability to settle any of that. All I can do is offer my take, and all I can ask is that you listen and consider it. Additionally, once this is over, please do share any and all of your own thoughts down below. As always, I will be very interested to read through them. The only thing I ask is to keep things civil and respectful, please. Alright, so, what the hell's been going on with the Division 2? Ever since the release of Title Update 15, it's almost felt like things are becoming more and more unraveled. Everything seemed pretty alright to begin with, you know, a few issues here and there, but then the cracks kind of started to show. The end screen loading of Countdown was bugged, people couldn't turn in their manhunt intel for the Fae comms, the donate all junk button for the expertise system wasn't awarding the proper XP, and then recently we've of course seen some pretty big and gnarly issues, the expertise rollback, the entire game mode of conflict being disabled due to a progression wiping glitch, which by the way is the only time I can ever recall in the Division's history that a mode has been entirely disabled in the live game. Certainly correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, some pretty big and pretty drastic stuff, and it's really tarnished the start of year 4 for a lot of people. Now, I will say with complete honesty, I think Countdown is the saving grace of this update. Regardless of how you feel about the mode, from a technical standpoint, it's about the most polished thing about this update, other than the initial end screen loading bug I mentioned, you know, when the update launched, the connection issues people are having, and a few other tiny things here and there. From my own personal experience, I've encountered almost zero issues with the mode itself. No objectives not working properly, no bugged spawns, literally nothing. And while clearly having all these other areas of the game be bugged out is causing problems and making people very frustrated, I firmly believe that if Countdown, the prime piece of new content itself, had been severely bugged, things would have been far worse off as far as public reception. So in that sense, I think we're fortunate, if you can say that. But even though I think having the smaller stuff bugged is preferable to big new pieces of content, it's become very clear that that has its limits, because when you can go through a play session and encounter enough sizable bugs and issues to count on one hand, sometimes even two hands, that's problematic. And that's really where a lot of people's frustrations are coming from right now. And so, one thing we need to make very clear right now is that I do not think any of these issues are good. And I say that because there have been numerous people lately saying, well, because you're not going around and shaming the devs and calling them out, that means you're okay with the game being like this. No, it absolutely does not. If you truly think that I think having to roll back people's expertise progress is good, or that prolonged waiting for compensation for said rollback is good, or that delayed Twitch drops are good, or the multiple time delayed apparel event, or damage glitches, or having conflict wipe your expertise progress and them having to disable it because of that, or having the new weapon models still attaching the wrong mods, missing mods, not applying skins, or having people's season progress getting stuck, or having items in the wrong loopholes and having to remove them, or this and that, I mean the list goes on. If anyone seriously thinks that I think any of that is good for the game, the players, or the devs in any way, shape, or form, then I don't know what to tell you. That's simply not the truth. Especially the line of thinking that has been around for years, but I still find to be incredibly silly, that somehow having the game be in an unideal state with bugs and everything, that's somehow advantageous to the devs, that they derive pleasure from having their players be frustrated while playing. I can't even begin to comment on that idea's origination, but clearly this is not good for them in any way either. The game's state is a reflection of their work. These are professional individuals being paid for a job, and so them having their product be buggy and incomplete is of course not going to reflect favorably on them professionally. I still really have no idea where that belief started, but anyway, frankly, I don't recall a time in Division's history where things have been so volatile. I mean, we've had delays before, we've had bugs before, we've had it all, but not this many, and not all at once. And it feels bad, without a doubt. I'm getting tired of saying, here's a new date, and then, oh, we have a delay. I'm sorry you're experiencing that bug, here's the workaround I know about. that stuff's not fun. But let me tell you where my line of thinking differs from a lot of people's. Like I mentioned earlier, plenty of people have said that because I'm not actively and loudly calling out the devs or shaming their behavior, that I'm therefore supporting or encouraging more bugs and whatnot, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I don't support unideal bugs or delays or any of that stuff. Why would I? But my response to those things is never going to be blunt negativity, because as a person and in my life beyond YouTube and gaming, I don't find that type of response to nearly ever be productive or respectful, and it's a core ideal of mine to try and treat every other person I meet or interact with with as much respect as I can. And telling somebody, you did a bad job, do better, or I'm just going to get more angry, like I said, I don't find that to be particularly respectful or productive. Let me put it like this. Imagine I'm a college professor and the Division devs are students of mine in a writing class. We have a big paper coming up, everybody's been working on it for a long time, and each and every student has drafted their paper, proofread it, done some editing, maybe they got a friend or a family member to read it over for them. They've done their best, and when they hand me that paper, it's with the intention that it's as perfect as they can make it, and that it's a representation of their best work. And what do I find? A typo in paragraph 3, a run-on sentence on page 2, they didn't properly cite one of their sources. What am I going to do? Am I going to call them up in front of the class and ridicule them for making these mistakes, saying, how on earth could you have missed this? How could you have messed up so badly? No, maybe some people would, and as much as I disagree with that, that's really none of my business. I'm going to grade the paper, point out the mistakes, and give it back to them so they can go and have a chance to revise it. And it's the same principle I take here on YouTube. Many of you have heard me say before that I made this channel to share the thoughts and discussions I was already having about the Division and to see if anybody else wanted to join in along in those discussions. So when I see something that I disagree with or I think is bugged or broken, I make my notes, I share my thoughts, and then I move on, and I hope to see improvement. I don't find it worth my time personally to harp over things or let it consume my thinking or my time or to lash out at anybody for making a mistake. If that's what you want to do, then there are plenty of other channels out there that do that, I promise you. That's just not who I am as a person. Sorry. And to go back to that analogy, the problem with video games is that one small error like a typo or a run-on sentence has a much more drastic impact within the context of a video game than it does in an essay. In writing, your words are independent, whereas in coding, everything is interlinked and interconnected. Now, I guarantee that each and every one of you listening has experienced that moment where you think something's perfect, you go to show your friend, teacher, whoever, and they're like, well, what about this obvious flaw right here on the front page? It's happened to everybody. It's human error. But when that error occurs in coding and in game development, that one error suddenly makes 5 other things fail, and instead of you showing your work to your friend, it's millions of people around the world who are playing for entertainment and expecting a smooth experience. And unfortunately, that's not always what we've gotten. And what is further compounding the issue that exists for game development across the board is the current circumstances behind the Division 2's development team. Not only are the usual stakes and difficulty of coding and development present, but the team behind the game is very small, and as we've been told, a large number of them are new additions and hires who are still actively learning the Snowdrop engine. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know what sort of challenges or differences in learning a new engine might entail. Certainly, I know many of you don't either, which is why I sometimes find these harsh reactions so ironic. But additionally, as Yannick laid out in the interview that I did with him, this isn't the case of these people being able to learn this while the team is still working on an unreleased new game. They're coming onto this 3-plus-year-old project, which has been fully built and constructed by other people using different methods. And let me be clear, I'm not laying all this out to try and provide excuses for what we're seeing right now and the issues we're having with the game. They're providing us with a product, and that product is functioning far less than ideal right now. But I'm just trying to set the stage for people as accurately as I can, because frankly, given what Ubisoft set us up for with this Year 4 content, I'm not all that surprised that we're seeing what we're seeing right now. To go back to the writing example, it would be like dropping a college student who needs the practice of writing 121 and 122 straight into a 400-level writing class. And now not only are they going to be publicly ridiculed for any mistakes they make in their work, but they're expected to be proficient in ideas and practices that they haven't had the sufficient chance to master. And so ultimately, as I always say, if you want somebody to blame the higher-ups who greenlit new Division 2 content but didn't provide the amount of support that's realistically responsible to provide. At the end of the day, Ubisoft providing anything less than their best for this community as far as support behind the game goes is honestly just disrespectful to the player base. I think we all know that if Ubisoft were to dedicate Destiny-level resources to the Division IP, as in all of Massive solely focusing on the Division 2, the game and franchise could easily be Ubi's biggest IP and bring in tons and tons of yearly revenue. We've all known this for years. We've said it since the Division 1. And by a similar token, I've been saying for years now that if it were up to me, I'd rather they immediately stop working on the Division 2 and just move on to working on the Division 3. Would we be waiting a couple more years without mainline Division content because of it? Yeah. But a lot of you know that I've always had issues with the Division 2, same as the Division 1. And I think it's important for you all to recognize that. For me as a person, You don't have to be happy with every single aspect of something to still love and enjoy it. I heavily disagree with the Division 2's PvP choices in comparison to Div 1. I think build making has been far too basic ever since Wony. I think healing in the game is poor compared to Division 1. I think the game is handled far too casually at times. I think the winter setting was far more compelling than the summer has been. I have zero problem saying those things because it's what I've believed for years. You can go back and listen to my other videos explaining that stuff, but am I suddenly going to come out and say, I've had enough because of this small new development team isn't coming and changing the entire game and doing so bug-free? No, it's just not realistic, and it's not our reality. I wish it was our reality that we had a big enough development team to properly support a game of this magnitude, but again, that's really on Ubisoft. And at the end of the day, this is my favorite video game franchise of all time, and if I had to defy reality and convince myself that the future is different than it's slated to be in order to enjoy myself while I play, I wouldn't play. I have other things in my life that matter to me and that I spend my time doing besides just gaming. And when I play games, I do so to have fun. And I've never not had fun with The Division. Have I rage quitted from having a Nomad proc 4 lives on me before they finally killed me? Yes. Have I gotten frustrated having to set my inventory sorting options every time I log on? Yes. Have I said the words, I hate this game numerous times while I play? Yes. But again, you can love something without having to be happy with every single aspect of it. And the truth is that if having some donation bugs and delays in apparel events or incorrect loot sources really made me that upset, I would have quit this game a long time ago. So that's kind of where I come from things at. Ultimately, I think I do view video games in a bit of a different light than many others do, and that's completely fine. You know, I'm not saying my viewpoints or opinions are any more valid than anybody else's, but a lot of my audience and people in this community I've found use such harsh language and convey such deep emotion about their frustrations with things, and I'm just not that kind of person. If something really makes me that angry in a video game, I can click the little power button on my console and go spend my time elsewhere. I am deeply passionate about gaming, as my presence on this channel probably indicates, but that's because I view the entire industry in a positive light as a whole. And again, that does not mean I am satisfied with the current state of things. It does not mean I am happy that the player base has to endure all of these issues with a product they paid for. But when I'm faced with those kinds of problems, especially considering the current circumstances and the reality behind the development right now, my reaction as an individual is to pass along my feedback and hope to see improvement. I understand that that's not the case for many of you, though, and so what I do want to do is echo something I've heard a few different people say in the community recently, and that's that if the issues we're seeing truly do make you that upset and you want to voice your frustrations, don't go personally attack developers, because not only is that just wrong, but it will literally get nothing done to help you. Just don't play the game. The team themselves have said that Year 5 and the general future of the Division 2 rests upon Year 4 being successful, bringing in lots of players and generating lots of revenue. And so if you're truly dissatisfied with the product you're playing, just don't play. That's going to have a far greater impact, and your voice is going to be made much more heard than any rant on Twitter will. If you're not playing the game, the numbers go down. Ubisoft sees the reflection of that. Myself personally, I'm going to continue playing the game because, as I said, I've never not enjoyed my time in the Division. As with any issues we've ever faced in the past, I'm going to continue to report, provide information, give my thoughts on the current problems with the game, and hope to see improvement moving forward, especially considering the circumstances with the behind-the-scenes development right now. I don't think getting more angry and making things louder is going to help this development team get better faster or learn the things they need to learn quicker. But that's just my point of view. I will be very interested to hear yours, and to revisit my analogy one last time, as I hand back this current draft to the Division 2 team, my primary notes are, stay honest. You've been put in a tough situation, there's a lot working against you, and I expect there will be more issues to come in the next draft and the one after that. That's to be expected if I've learned anything from the Division over the past 6 years. But those issues are going to hurt a lot less if you stay honest with what went wrong and remain open to feedback. So for now, best of luck, and as always, I'm excited to see the next chapter. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on to be updated every time I upload. As I said, let me know your thoughts on all of these things and the general state of the Division 2 right now. Do you view these things in any similar way to myself, or perhaps have you reached your limit with what we're seeing in game right now? I do want to hear whatever side of the argument you're on. Again, my only request is to keep things civil. Don't go out personally attacking people. That's not cool. But beyond that, I am immensely interested, as always, to hear your thoughts, particularly on this specific conversation. That's all I've got for today, people. I appreciate you listening to my thoughts. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.